The bullet grazed the saloon's wooden post just inches from where Amanda Foster stood, sending splinters flying through the hot August air of Delta, Colorado. But she did not flinch, because 3 years of living in this dusty frontier town had taught her that fear was a luxury a woman running a boarding house alone could not afford. It was 1878, and the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the main street, where a crowd had gathered outside the Silver Spur Saloon. Amanda had been walking back from the general store, her arms laden with supplies for the evening meal she would prepare for her boarders, when the commotion erupted. She heard the raised voices first, then saw the man stumble backward through the saloon doors, his face flushed with whiskey and rage. "That woman is nothing but a common thief," the man shouted, pointing a trembling finger in her direction. His name was Vernon McCready, a cattle buyer from Kansas who had stayed at her boarding house for 2 weeks before departing without paying his bill. "She took my money while I slept. Went through my things like a common criminal." Amanda's cheeks burned with humiliation as dozens of eyes turned toward her. She knew how quickly rumors spread in a town like Delta, how a woman's reputation could be destroyed with mere whispers. The town had already been unkind to her since her father died last year, leaving her the boarding house and a mountain of debts. Some folks thought a 22-year-old woman had no business running an establishment that catered to rough men passing through town. "That is a lie," Amanda said, her voice steady despite the anger coursing through her veins. "You left without paying for 2 weeks of room and board. The sheriff knows about your unpaid debts all over Colorado." McCready lurched forward, his hand moving toward the pistol at his hip. "You calling me a liar? You little—" He never finished the sentence. A tall figure moved between them with the fluid grace of a mountain lion, and suddenly McCready was facing a broad-shouldered man in a dusty brown hat and worn leather vest. The newcomer stood at least 6 feet tall, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. Amanda recognized him immediately because Benjamin Stone had arrived at her boarding house just 3 days ago, taking the small room at the end of the upstairs hallway. "No one speaks ill of the woman I cherish," Benjamin said, his voice low and dangerous. The statement caught Amanda completely off guard, sending her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. They had barely exchanged more than polite greetings and discussions about meal times. What did he mean by such words? McCready seemed equally surprised, but his whiskey-soaked bravado pushed him forward. "You cherish her. This 2-bit boarding house keeper. You must be as crooked as she is." The crowd had grown larger now, forming a loose circle around the 3 of them. Amanda noticed Sheriff Patterson making his way through the gathering, but he was still several yards away. Benjamin's jaw tightened, and she saw his hands curl into fists at his sides, though he made no move toward his own weapon. "I will say this once," Benjamin continued, his tone measured but hard as iron. "Miss Foster runs an honest establishment. I have stayed in boarding houses from Texas to Montana, and hers is among the finest. If you left without settling your account, that makes you the thief, not her. And if you speak another word against her character, you will answer to me." McCready's face turned purple with rage. "You threatening me, Cowboy? I am stating a fact." The sheriff finally pushed through the crowd, his badge glinting in the sunlight. Harold Patterson was a fair man in his 50s who had known Amanda's father well. "What is going on here?" he demanded. "This man owes me $42, Amanda said quickly, finding her voice. "He stayed at my boarding house for 2 weeks and left at dawn 4 days ago without paying. I have his signature in my ledger book back at the house." "She is lying," McCready protested. "I paid her in full. She is trying to collect twice." Sheriff Patterson looked between them, his weathered face thoughtful. "Vernon McCready, I heard you skipped out on the hotel in Montrose last month. And there was that incident in Gunnison where you left the livery stable without paying for your horse's boarding." McCready's bluster faltered slightly. "That is different. Those were misunderstandings." "Seems like you have a lot of misunderstandings," Benjamin observed dryly. "Funny how they all involve you not paying what you owe." The sheriff nodded slowly. "Miss Foster, you have that ledger." "I can fetch it right now," Amanda replied. "McCready, you have proof you paid her." The cattle buyer's eyes darted around nervously, seeking support from the crowd but finding only skeptical faces. I paid in cash. There would not be a receipt." "But Miss Foster would have marked it as paid in her ledger if you had settled up," the sheriff pointed out. "She keeps meticulous records. Her father taught her well." Amanda felt a surge of gratitude toward Sheriff Patterson. He had been one of the few men in town who treated her with respect after her father's death, never questioning her ability to maintain the business alone. "This is ridiculous," McCready sputtered. "You are all in on it together, probably splitting the money between you." Benjamin took a step closer to McCready, and despite the cattle buyer being a large man himself, he seemed to shrink under the cowboy's steady gaze. "You have insulted Miss Foster's honor twice now. You have called her a thief and suggested she is part of some conspiracy. I believe you owe her an apology in addition to the money you owe for your stay." "I am not apologizing to anyone." "Then you will deal with me." The challenge hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Amanda felt her breath catch in her throat. She did not want violence on her account, did not want Benjamin risking himself for her sake. Yet something about his unwavering defense of her made her feel protected in a way she had not experienced since her father's passing. Sheriff Patterson stepped between the two men, holding up his hands. "Nobody is dealing with anybody. McCready, I am giving you two choices. You can pay Miss Foster what you owe her right now, plus an additional $10 for the trouble you have caused. Or you can spend the night in my jail while I send telegrams to Montrose and Gunnison to confirm these other debts folks have mentioned. If those pan out the way I think they will, you will be sitting in that cell a lot longer than one night." The fight seemed to drain out of McCready all at once. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet, counting out bills with shaking hands. $52, he muttered, shoving the money toward Amanda. "Are we square now?" Amanda took the money carefully, counting it herself before tucking it into her reticule. "We are square." "And the apology?" Benjamin prompted, his voice still carrying that edge of steel. McCready's face twisted with resentment, but he mumbled, "I apologize for the accusations." "Louder," Benjamin insisted, "so everyone here can hear you take back your lies." "I apologize," McCready shouted, his face flushed. "I was wrong. She did not steal from me. I forgot to pay before I left." "Are you satisfied?" Benjamin did not answer immediately. He looked at Amanda, and their eyes met across the small distance between them. In his gaze, she saw concern, protectiveness, and something else she could not quite name, but that made warmth spread through her chest. "Miss Foster," Benjamin asked, "are you satisfied with his apology?" She nodded slowly. "I am." "Then we are done here," Benjamin said, finally stepping back. "McCready, I suggest you leave Delta and not come back." The cattle buyer did not need to be told twice. He pushed through the crowd and disappeared down the street toward the livery stable, presumably to retrieve his horse and leave town. The gathered townspeople began to disperse, their free entertainment concluded, though Amanda heard several women whispering and felt their judgmental stares. Sheriff Patterson tipped his hat to her. "Sorry for the trouble, Miss Foster. Your father would be proud of how you handled yourself today." "Thank you, Sheriff," Amanda replied softly. As the lawman walked away, Amanda found herself alone with Benjamin Stone on the dusty street, her packages still scattered at her feet where she had dropped them during the confrontation. He bent down immediately, gathering the parcels with careful hands. "You did not have to do that," Amanda said, kneeling beside him to help. "Stand up for me like that. I have dealt with men like Macready before." Benjamin looked at her directly, and she was struck by the deep brown of his eyes, warm despite the hardness that had been there moments before. "A man who stands by while a woman is falsely accused is no man at all," he said simply. "Besides, I meant what I said. About cherishing me." Amanda felt her cheeks grow hot. "We barely know each other, Mr. Stone." "Benjamin," he corrected, standing and offering his hand to help her up. She took it, feeling the callous strength of his palm against hers. "And perhaps I spoke hastily in the heat of the moment, but not dishonestly. I have observed you these past 3 days, Miss Foster. The way you work from dawn until late in the evening, cooking for your boarders, keeping your house immaculate, treating everyone with kindness even when some of them treat you with little respect in return. I have seen your character, and it is admirable. When that man spoke against you, something in me simply could not abide it." Amanda felt something shift inside her chest, like a door opening that she had kept firmly locked since her father's death. She had been so focused on survival, on keeping the boarding house running and the creditors at bay, that she had not allowed herself to think about companionship, about the possibility of someone caring for her the way Benjamin's words suggested he might. "I thank you," she managed, unsure what else to say. "That is very kind of you to say. It is not kindness, it is observation." Benjamin gathered the rest of her packages. "Let me help you carry these back to the boarding house. It is the least I can do since I made quite a scene on your behalf." They walked together down the main street of Delta, past the general store and the blacksmith shop, past the small white church where her father was buried in the cemetery out back. The late afternoon heat pressed down on them, but a slight breeze from the nearby Gunnison River provided occasional relief. Delta sat in a valley surrounded by mesas and mountains, a small but growing town that served ranchers, miners, and travelers passing through western Colorado. "Have you lived in Delta long?" Benjamin asked as they walked. "All my life," Amanda replied. "My father brought my mother here when the town was barely more than a few buildings. He built the boarding house with his own hands. My mother died when I was 10, so it has been just him and me for many years. When he passed last year, everyone expected me to sell the place and move back east to live with relatives, but—" She trailed off, looking up at the familiar false-fronted buildings. "This is my home. I was not ready to give it up." "That takes courage," Benjamin observed. "Running a business alone is difficult for anyone. Running one as a young woman in a frontier town must be doubly so." "Some folks do not think it is proper," Amanda admitted. "They whisper that I should not be housing men without a husband or father to oversee things. But I keep a respectable establishment. I have strict rules about behavior, and I do not tolerate drinking or gambling on my property. Most of my boarders are decent men just passing through for work." "Most," Benjamin smiled slightly. "But not all. Macready was an exception. Usually I can judge a person's character fairly well. I must have been distracted when he arrived." She had been distracted, she remembered, because that had been the week the bank had sent someone to discuss her outstanding loan, threatening foreclosure if she could not make larger payments. They reached the boarding house, a 2-story structure painted white with green shutters and a wide front porch. Amanda had planted flowers in boxes along the porch rail, bright spots of color that softened the utilitarian nature of the building. She felt a surge of pride looking at it, despite all the struggles it represented. Benjamin carried her packages up the steps and into the front hall. The interior was cool and dim after the bright sunlight outside, smelling of the lemon oil Amanda used to polish the wood furniture. A narrow staircase led to the second floor where 6 guest rooms waited. The dining room opened to the left, and through the doorway to the right, Amanda could see into the parlor where 2 of her other current boarders sat reading newspapers. "Just set them on the hall table," Amanda instructed. "I can manage from here." Benjamin did as she asked but made no move to leave. He removed his hat, revealing that dark, wavy hair more clearly, and turned it in his hands uncertainly. "Miss Foster, I wonder if I might speak with you privately for a moment." Amanda's heart began beating faster again. "Of course. We can talk in the kitchen." She led him through the dining room and into the large kitchen at the back of the house. This was her domain, where she spent hours each day preparing meals. Cast iron pots hung from hooks on the walls, and a massive wood-burning stove dominated one corner. She had already prepared vegetables for tonight's stew, which sat in a pot of water waiting to be cooked. "Would you like coffee?" Amanda offered, moving toward the stove where a pot still sat warm from the morning. "No, thank you." Benjamin stood awkwardly near the kitchen table, still turning his hat in his hands. "I wanted to apologize if I overstepped earlier, when I said those things about cherishing you. I realized afterward that it might have seemed presumptuous or even improper. I did not mean to cause you any embarrassment." Amanda poured herself a cup of coffee, using the moment to gather her thoughts. "You did not embarrass me," she said finally, turning to face him. "You defended me when no one else would have. That means more than I can properly express. Still, I claimed a familiarity between us that does not yet exist. People will talk." "People already talk," Amanda said with a slight smile. "They have talked about me since the day I took over this place. At least now they will have something more interesting to gossip about than whether I am capable of managing accounts." Benjamin returned her smile, and she noticed how it transformed his face, softening the hard edges that came from years of outdoor work. "You have a point there. I suppose I have made us both the subject of speculation. Can I ask you something?" Amanda set down her coffee cup. "Why did you do it? Really? I understand the principle of defending someone falsely accused, but you spoke as though there was more to it than simple justice." He was quiet for a long moment, his brown eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed yet not uncomfortable. "I am 30 years old, Miss Foster. I have spent more than half my life drifting from place to place, working cattle drives, breaking horses, taking whatever jobs came my way. I have seen much of this country, from the deserts of New Mexico to the plains of Kansas to the mountains of Montana. In all that time, I have met many people, stayed in many places, but I have never felt the urge to settle anywhere." He paused, setting his hat on the table and running a hand through his hair. "Then I came to Delta 3 days ago, tired and ready for a soft bed and a decent meal. I found your boarding house, and from the moment I walked through that door, something felt different. Maybe it was the way you greeted me with genuine warmth despite clearly having a difficult day. Maybe it was the way the house itself felt like a home rather than just a place to sleep. Or maybe it was simply you." Amanda felt her breath catch in her throat. "Benjamin, I know this sounds like the words of a man who has spent too long in the sun," he continued with a self-deprecating smile, "but I have learned to trust my instincts. They have kept me alive through stampedes and storms and more dangerous situations than I care to count. And my instincts are telling me that you are someone special, Amanda Foster, someone worth knowing, someone worth defending." No one had spoken to her this way since before her father's death. The men who passed through her boarding house treated her with varying degrees of respect or condescension, but none had ever looked at her the way Benjamin was looking at her now, as though she were something precious and rare. "I do not know what to say," Amanda admitted softly. "This is unexpected. Say you will allow me to get to know you properly," Benjamin suggested. "I am paid up for another 4 days at your boarding house. Let me stay longer. Let me help around the place if you need it. I am good with repairs and I can handle difficult guests." He smiled slightly at that last part. "And perhaps, in the evenings when your work is done, you might sit with me on that porch of yours and tell me about your life here in Delta." Amanda knew she should be more cautious. She had learned through hard experience that people were not always what they seemed. Yet something about Benjamin's directness, his obvious sincerity, called to something deep inside her that had been lonely for far too long. "I would like that," she said. "But Benjamin, you should know that my life is complicated right now. The boarding house is struggling financially. I have debts from my father's final illness, and the bank is pressing me for payments I can barely make. I am not some carefree young woman with nothing but time for romance. I am fighting to keep my home and my livelihood." "All the more reason you could use a friend," Benjamin replied. "I am not asking for promises or commitments, Amanda. I am just asking for the chance to know you. Whatever else happens, wherever that leads, we can discover together." The sound of footsteps on the floor above reminded Amanda that she had other boarders to attend to, dinner to prepare, a dozen responsibilities that would not wait. But she looked at Benjamin Stone standing in her kitchen, his honest eyes and strong presence, and she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. "Hope, stay for dinner tonight," she said. "After the other boarders have eaten and gone, I usually have my own meal. You could join me, and we could talk properly." "I would be honored," Benjamin said, and the warmth in his voice made Amanda's heart flutter in a way she had almost forgotten was possible. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Amanda prepared a hearty beef stew with vegetables, baked fresh bread, and made an apple pie from fruit she had preserved last fall. Her 2 other current boarders, both miners working a claim in the nearby hills, ate quickly and retired to their rooms, barely speaking beyond compliments about the food. They were brothers, she had learned, saving money by sharing a room and rarely socializing. As Amanda cleaned up from the meal, she heard Benjamin's footsteps descending the stairs. He had changed from his dusty traveling clothes into clean denim pants and a blue shirt that brought out the color in his eyes. His hair was damp from washing, and he had shaved the trail dust from his face, revealing strong features and a slight cleft in his chin. "You did not have to dress up," Amanda said, feeling suddenly self-conscious about her own plain cotton dress and work-worn hands. "I wanted to," Benjamin replied simply. He moved into the kitchen and surveyed the dishes still waiting to be washed. Without asking permission, he rolled up his sleeves and began pumping water into the sink. "You do not have to do that," Amanda protested. "You are a paying guest." "And you are cooking for and cleaning up after everyone else," Benjamin countered. "The least I can do is help with dishes. Besides, my mother would never forgive me if she knew I let a woman do all the work while I sat idle." They worked side by side in comfortable silence, Amanda washing while Benjamin dried and stacked the clean dishes on the counter. It felt natural, easy in a way that surprised her. She was used to doing everything herself, maintaining firm boundaries between her role as proprietress and her boarders as guests. But Benjamin seemed to slip past those boundaries without even trying. "Tell me about your family," Amanda said as she scrubbed a stubborn pot. "You mentioned your mother. Do they live nearby?" "They have a ranch in Wyoming," Benjamin replied. My father raises cattle and horses. I have two younger sisters, both married now with families of their own. I was the restless one, the one who could not settle down to ranch life the way my father wanted. We had some arguments about it when I was younger. Do you regret leaving? Benjamin considered the question carefully. I regret the pain it caused my parents. They wanted me to take over the ranch eventually, build a life there. But I had to see what else was out there, you know. I needed to test myself, find my own path. I still visit them every year or so, and we have made our peace with my choices. It must be nice to have that choice, Amanda said quietly. To be able to go where you want, do what you want. Women do not have that same freedom. No, they do not, Benjamin agreed, which makes what you have accomplished here even more impressive. You chose to stay and fight for your home rather than taking the easier path of leaving. That takes a different kind of courage than wandering does. They finished the dishes, and Amanda served them both portions of stew and fresh bread, along with slices of the apple pie. They carried their plates out to the front porch where two rocking chairs sat overlooking the street. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the temperature had dropped to something more comfortable. For a while, they ate in silence, watching Delta's main street settle into evening quiet. A few cowboys rode past, heading toward the saloon. Lamps began glowing in windows up and down the street, small beacons of light against the gathering darkness. This is my favorite time of day, Amanda said softly, when all the work is done and I can just sit for a moment and breathe. Sometimes I wonder if my father felt the same way, if he used to sit right here in this chair and watch the town go to sleep. What was he like? Benjamin asked. Your father, Amanda smiled at the memories that surfaced. He was a good man, strong and principled but also kind. He believed in giving people chances, sometimes more chances than they deserved. He taught me to read and write and do figures. He made sure I understood every aspect of running this business because he said a woman needed to be twice as capable as a man to be taken half as seriously. He sounds wise. He was. I miss him every day. Amanda set down her fork, her appetite fading as emotion welled up. The last year has been so hard, Benjamin. Not just because of the money troubles, but because I have felt so alone. I have neighbors and acquaintances, but no real friends. People who knew my father are kind enough, but they see me as someone to be pitied rather than respected. The younger women in town think I am strange for choosing business over marriage, and the men. She trailed off with a bitter laugh. Some of them think a woman running a boarding house alone must be desperate enough to welcome certain kinds of advances. Benjamin's jaw tightened. Has anyone bothered you? Besides McCready's accusations, I mean. Nothing I could not handle, Amanda assured him. I keep my father's shotgun behind the front desk and I am not afraid to use it, but it gets exhausting, always having to prove myself, always having to be on guard. You should not have to live that way, Benjamin said quietly. He reached across the space between their rocking chairs and gently took her hand. The gesture was simple but intimate, and Amanda felt warmth spread from where their skin touched. You deserve to feel safe in your own home. You deserve respect and friendship and... He paused, his thumb brushing across her knuckles, and whatever else you want from this life. Amanda looked at their joined hands, then up at Benjamin's face. In the fading light, his features were soft, his eyes full of something that looked like tenderness. What do you want from life? She asked. You have spent years wandering. Are you looking for something specific or just running from something? Both, maybe, Benjamin admitted. Or neither. I thought I was looking for adventure, for freedom, for experiences beyond the boundaries of my father's ranch. And I found all those things. But lately, I have been feeling like maybe I was actually searching for a place to belong. A place that felt right, where I could put down roots and build something meaningful. Have you found it? Benjamin's eyes held her steadily. I think I might have, but it is too soon to say for certain. Some things need time to develop, to prove themselves real rather than just wishful thinking. They sat together on the porch as darkness fell completely, still holding hands, talking about their lives and dreams in quiet voices. Benjamin told her about the cattle drives he had worked, the beautiful and terrifying landscapes he had seen, the characters he had met along the way. Amanda spoke of her childhood in Delta, her mother's death, her father's determination to give her opportunities beyond the traditional limits placed on women. He used to say that circumstances might constrain us, but they did not have to define us, Amanda said. That we always had choices, even if none of them were easy. He raised a remarkable woman, Benjamin observed, strong and intelligent and beautiful. Amanda felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. You are too kind. I am honest. Benjamin lifted her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles, a gesture so tender that Amanda felt tears prick her eyes. When had anyone last touched her with such careful affection? Thank you for sharing your evening with me, Amanda. This has been one of the most pleasant nights I have had in longer than I can remember. For me as well, Amanda whispered. They eventually separated, Benjamin heading upstairs to his room while Amanda locked up the boarding house for the night. As she climbed the stairs to her own small room at the back of the second floor, she felt lighter than she had in months. The worry and stress that usually kept her awake were still there, but they seemed more bearable now, less overwhelming. She lay in bed that night thinking about Benjamin's words, about his defense of her in the street, about the feeling of his hand holding hers. It was too soon to call it love, she told herself. Too soon to pin hopes and dreams on a man she had known for only 3 days. But her heart seemed uninterested in caution, already reaching toward the possibility of something more. The next morning, Amanda woke before dawn as usual and went downstairs to start breakfast. She was surprised to find Benjamin already in the kitchen, the fire in the stove crackling and a pot of coffee brewing. You are up early, she said, tying her apron around her waist. Cowboy habits, Benjamin replied with a smile. I am used to rising with the sun. I hope you do not mind that I started the coffee. Not at all, thank you. Amanda moved to the pantry to gather ingredients for biscuits and gravy. You do not have to help with the cooking, though. That is my job. What if I want to help? Benjamin asked. Not because it is your job or my duty as a boarder, but because I enjoy your company and thought we might make breakfast together. Amanda paused in her work to look at him. In the early morning light filtering through the kitchen windows, he looked rumpled and domestic, his shirt untucked and his hair mussed from sleep. It was a different image from the hard-eyed cowboy who had faced down McCready, but she found she liked this version just as much. I would like that, she said softly. They prepared breakfast together, Amanda mixing biscuit dough while Benjamin sliced bacon and started it frying. They moved around each other easily, falling into a rhythm that felt practiced despite its newness. Amanda found herself humming while she worked, a habit she had lost after her father died. The miners came down for breakfast at 6, ate quickly, and left for their claim. Benjamin ate with them, then stayed to help Amanda clean up once again. As they worked, he said casually, I was thinking I might go into town today and speak with Sheriff Patterson. I have some experience with tracking and investigation. I thought I might offer my services in case he needs help with anything. Are you looking for work? Amanda asked, surprised. I thought you were just passing through. I was, Benjamin admitted, but I find I am in no hurry to leave Delta, and if I am going to stay a while, I should find a way to make myself useful to the community. The sheriff might appreciate having someone with my skills available, and it would give me something to do besides sit around your boarding house all day." Amanda felt a flutter of hope in her chest. "You are thinking of staying. For how long?" "As long as I have reason to," Benjamin said, his eyes meeting hers with clear meaning. "Unless you think that would be unwise." "I think it would be lovely," Amanda replied honestly. "But Benjamin, you should know that people will talk even more if you stay at my boarding house long term. They will make assumptions about us, about what we are to each other." "Let them talk," Benjamin said firmly. "We know the truth of things, and that is what matters. Besides, if their assumptions bother you, we could always make them reality." "What do you mean?" Benjamin set down the dish towel he had been using and turned to face her fully. "I mean that I am a patient man, Amanda, but I am also a direct one. I am drawn to you in a way I have never been drawn to anyone before. In 3 days, you have shown me more genuine character and strength than people I have known for years. I find myself wanting to know everything about you, to be near you, to protect you and support you and make you smile." He took a step closer, and Amanda's breath caught. "I know it is fast," Benjamin continued. "I know we have barely begun to know each other, but I also know that some things do not require endless time to recognize. Some things are simply true from the moment you see them. And what I see when I look at you is a woman I could easily fall in love with, if you would let me." Amanda's heart was racing now. Part of her wanted to be cautious, to protect herself from potential heartbreak. But a larger part, the part that had been lonely and struggling for so long, wanted to reach for this unexpected gift that had appeared in her life. "I could fall in love with you too," she admitted quietly. "I think perhaps I am already starting to." Benjamin's face broke into a wide smile. He reached out and cupped her cheek with one calloused hand, his touch gentle despite the roughness of his palm. "Then let us see where this leads," he said. "No promises yet, no rushing into anything. Just two people getting to know each other and seeing if what we feel now grows into something lasting." "That sounds perfect," Amanda whispered. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but she did not want to. When his lips met hers, it was a soft, sweet kiss that sent warmth flooding through her entire body. It lasted only a moment before Benjamin pulled back, but that moment felt like a promise of more to come. The following days fell into a pattern that made Amanda happier than she had been in years. Benjamin did indeed speak with Sheriff Patterson, who was glad to have someone with his experience available for odd jobs around town. He helped track down a horse thief, assisted with a boundary dispute between two ranchers, and generally made himself useful. In return, the sheriff paid him modest wages that allowed Benjamin to extend his stay at the boarding house indefinitely. Benjamin took his meals with Amanda, helped her with heavy work around the property, and spent his evenings on the porch with her after the other boarders had retired. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and dreams and slowly building the foundation of something deeper than either had expected to find. The town did talk, as Amanda had predicted. She heard the whispers when she went to the general store, saw the speculative looks when she attended Sunday services at the church. Most of it was harmless gossip, people wondering if the pretty young widow-to-be was finally going to find herself a husband. But some of it was more malicious, particularly from a group of older women who seemed to take offense at the idea of Amanda running her own business and entertaining male company without proper chaperonage. "Let them clutch their pearls," Benjamin said, when Amanda mentioned it. "You are doing nothing wrong. We are both adults and we are conducting ourselves respectably. Mrs. Harrigan said I was setting a bad example for the younger women in town," Amanda admitted. "She said a proper lady would not allow a man to court her without family supervision. Mrs. Harrigan does not run your life, Benjamin pointed out. And from what I hear, her own daughter eloped with a traveling salesman last year, so she is hardly in a position to judge anyone's courtship arrangements. Amanda could not help but laugh at that. Benjamin had a way of putting things in perspective, of making her worries seem smaller and more manageable. His presence in her life was like sunshine after a long winter, warming parts of her she had not realized had grown cold and hard. 2 weeks after the incident with Macready, Amanda was in the kitchen preparing lunch when she heard raised voices from the front of the boarding house. She wiped her hands on her apron and hurried toward the sound, finding Benjamin confronting a well-dressed man in the front hall. "I told you she is busy," Benjamin was saying, his tone polite but firm. "You can wait in the parlor like any other visitor." "I am not any other visitor," the man replied coldly. "I am from the bank, and I have business with Miss Foster that cannot wait." Amanda's stomach dropped. She recognized the man now as Gerald Finch, the assistant manager of Delta's only bank. He had been the one to visit her regarding her outstanding loan, the one who had made thinly veiled threats about foreclosure. "It is all right, Benjamin," Amanda said, stepping forward. "Mr. Finch, how can I help you?" Finch looked between her and Benjamin with obvious disapproval. "Perhaps we should speak privately, Miss Foster. This is a delicate financial matter." "Anything you need to say to me can be said in front of Mr. Stone," Amanda replied, reaching for Benjamin's hand and drawing strength from his solid presence beside her. "Very well." Finch pulled some papers from his leather satchel. "Miss Foster, your loan payment was due 3 days ago. You have not submitted payment, nor have you contacted the bank to make alternate arrangements. I am here to inform you that if payment is not received within 1 week, the bank will begin foreclosure proceedings on this property." Amanda felt the blood drain from her face. "That cannot be right." "My payment is not due until the end of the month. I have it marked on my calendar." "You are thinking of your regular monthly payment," Finch said with poorly concealed satisfaction. "This is the balloon payment your father agreed to when he renegotiated his loan last year. The full remaining balance of $2,000 due on September 1st. $2,000. Amanda's voice came out as barely a whisper. "There must be some mistake. My father never mentioned a balloon payment." "Perhaps he did not want to worry you," Finch suggested, though his tone implied he thought her father had been hiding information deliberately. "Regardless, the agreement is quite clear. I have the paperwork here if you would like to review it." Benjamin took the papers from Finch's hand before Amanda could reach for them. He scanned the documents quickly, his jaw tightening as he read. "This says the balloon payment was due if certain conditions were not met. What conditions?" "The property needed to generate a specific income level," Finch explained. "Your father projected that the boarding house would be bringing in at least $300 per month by this year. According to Miss Foster's own reported income, she is barely clearing half that amount." "Because half the town stopped using my services after my father died," Amanda said, anger cutting through her shock. "They did not trust a woman to run the establishment properly. That is not my fault." "The bank is not concerned with fault, Miss Foster. We are concerned with seeing our loan repaid. If you cannot produce $2,000 by September 8th, we will have no choice but to seize the property." "That is 6 days from now," Benjamin said sharply. "How is she supposed to come up with that kind of money in 6 days?" Finch shrugged. "That is not the bank's concern. Perhaps Miss Foster has family she can appeal to, or she might consider selling the property herself before foreclosure, which would at least allow her to recoup some value." "Get out," Amanda said quietly. When Finch did not move immediately, she raised her voice. "Get out of my house, now." Finch gathered his papers with exaggerated care. "I will expect to hear from you within the week, Miss Foster. Good day." He let himself out, leaving Amanda and Benjamin standing in the hall. For a long moment, Amanda could not speak. She felt numb, disconnected from her own body. $2,000 might as well have been $2 million. She had perhaps $50 saved, and her monthly income barely covered her current expenses. There was no way to raise that kind of money in less than a week. "Amanda," Benjamin said gently, but she shook her head. "I need to be alone for a moment." She turned and walked quickly toward the kitchen, through it and out the back door into the small yard behind the boarding house. She made it as far as the woodpile before her legs gave out, and she sank down onto a stump, her entire body shaking. She had known things were bad, but she had believed she was managing, staying ahead of disaster through sheer determination and hard work. To discover that her father had made an agreement she knew nothing about, that she had been walking toward this cliff edge without even knowing it, felt like a betrayal even though she knew he must have had his reasons. Benjamin found her there a few minutes later. He did not say anything, just sat down on the ground beside her stump and waited. After a while, Amanda found her voice. "I am going to lose everything," she said flatly. "The house, the business, everything my father built, everything he wanted me to have." "We do not know that yet," Benjamin replied. "There might be options we have not considered." "What options?" "I do not have wealthy relatives to appeal to. I have nothing valuable to sell except the boarding house itself, and even if I could find a buyer in 6 days, the bank would take all the money to satisfy the loan. What about taking out a new loan somewhere else to pay off this one?" "No other bank will lend to a single woman," Amanda said bitterly. "Especially one who is already in debt and barely making ends meet. I am trapped, Benjamin. I have been trying so hard to keep this place running, and it does not matter. I was doomed from the moment my father died, and I just did not know it." Benjamin was quiet for a moment. Then he said carefully, "There might be one option you have not considered." "What?" "Marry me." Amanda's head snapped up to stare at him. "What?" Benjamin met her gaze steadily. "Marry me, Amanda. If you have a husband, banks will look at your situation differently. I have some money saved, not enough to cover the full loan but enough to make a significant payment. And I can work, bring in steady income to help keep the boarding house running. Together we could manage what you cannot alone, at least in the eyes of the law. Benjamin, that is." Amanda struggled for words. "That is a huge step. We have known each other barely 2 weeks. You cannot marry me just to save my business." "I would not be doing it just for that reason," Benjamin said quietly. "I would be doing it because I have fallen in love with you, Amanda Foster. I did not plan to, and certainly not this quickly, but there it is. These past 2 weeks have been the happiest I can remember. The thought of leaving Delta, of never seeing you again, makes my chest ache. The thought of you losing your home, your father's legacy, when I might be able to help prevent it is unbearable." Tears were streaming down Amanda's face now. "You cannot love me, not really, not yet." "Why not?" Benjamin challenged gently. "Who decides how long love takes? I know my own heart, Amanda. I know that I wake up every morning eager to see your face. I know that your smile brightens my entire day. I know that when you talk about your dreams and fears, I want nothing more than to help make the dreams real and chase away the fears. If that is not love, what is it?" "But marriage," Amanda whispered. "That is forever. What if you regret it? What if you wake up in 6 months or a year and realize you made a terrible mistake to tie yourself to me?" "What if I do not?" Benjamin countered. "What if this is exactly right? Amanda, I am not asking you to marry me solely out of some misguided sense of chivalry. I am asking because I want a life with you. The business troubles just make the timing more urgent, but they are not the reason. You are the reason." Amanda wanted desperately to believe him, to believe this could work. But the practical part of her brain, the part her father had trained to be realistic and cautious, raised objections. "Even if we married, it might not be enough. Your savings plus whatever I have might satisfy the bank for now, but what about future payments? What if the boarding house still does not generate enough income?" "Then we figure it out together," Benjamin said firmly. "We find ways to bring in more guests. Maybe we expand the services you offer. Maybe I take on more work around town. Whatever it takes, we face it as partners rather than you facing it alone." He reached up and took both her hands in his. "I know this is fast, Amanda. I know it is unconventional, but nothing about either of our lives has been conventional. You are a woman running her own business in a frontier town. I am a drifter who finally found a place he wants to stay. Maybe we are not following the usual path, but that does not mean we are on the wrong one." Amanda looked into his eyes, those warm brown eyes that had defended her honor to strangers, that watched her with such tenderness and belief. She thought about the past 2 weeks, how natural it had felt having Benjamin in her life, how right it seemed when they worked together and talked together and simply existed in each other's presence. Was it love? She thought it might be. It was certainly the beginning of something that could grow into love, given time and nurturing. And did it really matter whether they had known each other 2 weeks or 2 years if what they felt was genuine? "If I say yes," Amanda said slowly, "it has to be a real marriage. I will not have you sacrificing yourself out of obligation only to resent me later. If we do this, it is because we both believe we can build something meaningful together." "I absolutely believe that," Benjamin said intently. "Amanda, I swear to you, I am not proposing out of pity or duty. I want to wake up beside you every morning. I want to build a life with you, have children with you if you want them, grow old watching sunsets from that front porch. The business troubles just moved up my timeline for asking, but I was already heading in this direction." "You were." Amanda felt fresh tears spring to her eyes. "Really, really." Benjamin smiled softly. "I was planning to court you properly for several months, let the town get used to seeing us together, give you time to be certain of your feelings. But circumstances are forcing our hand, and honestly, I am not sorry about that. Why wait when I already know what I want?" Amanda thought about the alternative, about losing the boarding house and having to leave Delta with nothing. About never seeing Benjamin again, never exploring what they could become together. The fear of that future was worse than any fear she had about marrying quickly. "Yes," she said softly. "Yes, I will marry you." Benjamin's face lit up with joy. He stood and pulled her up with him, wrapping his arms around her in a tight embrace. Amanda buried her face in his chest, feeling his heart beating strong and steady beneath her cheek. "We will make this work," Benjamin murmured into her hair. "I promise you, Amanda. We will save your home and build our life together." They went to see Sheriff Patterson that afternoon to discuss how to proceed. The lawman was surprised but pleased by their news, and he directed them to Reverend Matthews at the church. By evening, arrangements had been made for a simple ceremony the following morning. There was no time for a fancy wedding or elaborate preparations, but Amanda found she did not care about such things. What mattered was the commitment, the promise of partnership and support. That night, they sat on the porch together as had become their custom. Benjamin had his arm around Amanda's shoulders and she leaned against him, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "Are you having second thoughts?" Benjamin asked quietly. "A few," Amanda admitted. "Not about you, but about everything happening so fast. It feels like my life is moving at the speed of a runaway horse." "We can slow down if you need to," Benjamin offered. "Maybe there is another way to handle the bank situation." No, Amanda said firmly. I meant what I said. I want this, Benjamin. I want you. I am just nervous about all of it working out the way we hope. That is understandable. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. But Amanda, I need you to understand something. Even if the worst happens, even if we cannot save the boarding house, that does not change anything between us. We will still have each other. We will figure out another path forward. You would give up your freedom, your wandering life, even without the boarding house as a reason to stay in Delta. Yes, there was no hesitation in his voice. I told you the business troubles just changed the timing. My decision to stay, to build a life with you, that is about who you are, not what you own. Amanda turned in his arms so she could look at his face. In the lamplight from the windows behind them, his features were half in shadow, but his eyes were clear and honest. I love you, she said, the words feeling both scary and right. I probably should not yet, but I do. These past 2 weeks have shown me what it feels like to have a true partner, someone who sees me as capable and strong but still wants to help shoulder my burdens. I have never had that before, and I do not want to lose it. You love me. Benjamin's voice was rough with emotion. I love you, Amanda confirmed. So tomorrow, when we stand before Reverend Matthews, I am not just doing it to save my business. I am doing it because I want to be your wife. I want to build a life with you. I want all of it, Benjamin. The partnership and the challenges and the possibility of family. All of it. Benjamin kissed her then, a deep, thorough kiss that left them both breathless. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers and whispered, I love you too, Amanda Foster. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret saying yes to me. They married the next morning in the small church at the edge of town. Sheriff Patterson stood as a witness, along with Mrs. Chen, a Chinese woman who ran the town's laundry and had always been kind to Amanda. Reverend Matthews performed a brief but heartfelt ceremony, speaking about partnership and mutual support in addition to the traditional vows. Amanda wore her best dress, a simple blue cotton that brought out the color of her eyes. Benjamin had bought a new white shirt for the occasion and polished his boots until they shone. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Benjamin kissed her with such tenderness that Amanda felt tears slide down her cheeks. After the ceremony, they went directly to the bank. Benjamin had withdrawn his savings from an account he maintained in Denver, and combined with Amanda's small reserve, they had nearly $800. It was not the full $2,000 the bank demanded, but it was a significant payment. Mr. Whitmore, the bank manager, looked surprised when Amanda entered his office with Benjamin at her side. His expression grew even more surprised when she explained they had married that very morning. I see, Whitmore said slowly. He was an older man with gray hair and a cautious demeanor, far less hostile than his assistant Finch. And you are here about the loan. We are here to make a payment and renegotiate terms, Benjamin said firmly. He placed the stack of bills on Whitmore's desk. $800 toward the outstanding balance, and we would like to discuss a realistic payment plan for the remainder. Whitmore counted the money carefully, then pulled out Amanda's father's loan file. He studied it for several minutes while Benjamin and Amanda waited with tense anticipation. Finally, he looked up at them. Mr. Stone, may I ask what your employment situation is? I am working with Sheriff Patterson currently, Benjamin replied. I also have skills in horse training and ranch work. I can provide references from previous employers if needed. And you intend to stay in Delta permanently? I do. My wife's business is here, and this is where we plan to build our life together. Whitmore nodded slowly. Miss Foster. Forgive me, Mrs. Stone. I must tell you that I never felt good about this balloon payment situation. Your father was a good man and a valuable member of this community. When he fell ill, he was desperate to ensure you would be taken care of, and he agreed to terms that I considered unrealistic. But my hands were tied by bank policy. What are you saying? Amanda asked carefully. I am saying that with this substantial payment and the change in your circumstances, I believe I can convince the board to restructure your loan under more favorable terms. The fact that you now have a husband with steady employment makes you a much more viable borrower in the bank's eyes, unfair as that may be. Amanda felt hope surge in her chest. You can do that. I will need a few days to draw up the new paperwork and get board approval, Whitmore said. But yes, I believe I can. I am thinking a 5-year repayment plan with reasonable monthly installments based on projected income from the boarding house plus Mr. Stone's wages. Does that sound acceptable? More than acceptable, Benjamin said, squeezing Amanda's hand. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. They left the bank feeling as though an enormous weight had been lifted from their shoulders. On the boardwalk outside, Benjamin swept Amanda into his arms and spun her around, making her laugh with delight despite the propriety of public displays. We did it, Amanda said, still laughing. We actually did it. We did, Benjamin agreed, setting her down but keeping his arms around her waist. Your home is safe, Amanda. Your father's legacy is secure. Tears of relief streamed down Amanda's face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for believing in me, for standing with me, for making this possible. You do not need to thank me, Benjamin said gently. We are partners now, remember? Your battles are my battles. Your victories are my victories. They walked back to the boarding house hand in hand, ignoring the stares and whispers of townspeople who saw them. Let them talk, Amanda thought. She had married a good man who loved her, and together they had just saved her business. What did gossip matter against such blessings? The miners who rented a room were surprised to learn their landlady had married, but they offered awkward congratulations. Benjamin moved his few belongings from the small guest room into Amanda's quarters at the back of the second floor, and that night they shared a bed as husband and wife for the first time. Benjamin was gentle and patient, taking time to ensure Amanda felt comfortable and cherished. Their lovemaking was tender rather than passionate, both of them still learning each other's bodies and preferences, but it felt right and good and like the beginning of something beautiful. Afterward, Amanda lay with her head on Benjamin's chest, listening to his heartbeat and feeling more content than she could remember being in years. I was so scared of losing everything, she admitted quietly. The boarding house has been my entire world since my father died. The thought of being forced to leave, to fail at the one thing he entrusted to me, was unbearable. You are not going to fail, Benjamin assured her, his hand stroking her hair. But Amanda, even if you had lost the boarding house, it would not have meant you failed. Your father would be proud of how hard you fought, how long you held on against circumstances that would have broken most people. The measure of a person is not whether they never fall, but whether they get back up when they do. You have a way of making me see things differently, Amanda murmured. More hopefully. That is what partners do, Benjamin replied. We balance each other. You keep me grounded when I might otherwise drift. I remind you to hope when worry threatens to overwhelm you. Together we are stronger than either of us alone. Amanda tilted her head up to kiss him softly. I am glad you came to Delta, Benjamin Stone. I am glad you chose to stay. I am glad too, Benjamin whispered against her lips. So very glad. The next few weeks brought adjustments as they learned to live as husband and wife. Benjamin took on more responsibility for the heavy physical work around the boarding house, repairing the sagging porch steps, fixing a leak in the roof, and reinforcing the fence around the small yard. He also continued his work with Sheriff Patterson, building a reputation in Delta as a reliable and honest man. Amanda found herself enjoying having a true partner in the business. Benjamin had good instincts about people, and he helped her screen potential boarders more carefully, weeding out those who might cause trouble before they became problems. He also suggested ways to improve the boarding house's appeal, like building additional rooms in the currently unused attic space to accommodate more guests. But it was not all smooth sailing. They had their first real argument a month after their wedding when Benjamin wanted to invest in expanding the property, and Amanda was reluctant to take on additional expenses when they were still repaying the loan. "We need to think about growth," Benjamin insisted as they stood in the kitchen after supper. "Just barely making payments is not a long-term strategy. We should be working to increase income so we have a buffer." "And I am saying we cannot afford to spend money we do not have," Amanda countered. "Adding rooms means buying materials and hiring help. What if something goes wrong? What if we spend that money and cannot fill the new rooms?" "What if we can?" Benjamin challenged. "Amanda, you are thinking from a place of fear." "I understand why, given everything you have been through, but sometimes you have to take calculated risks to move forward." "This is my business," Amanda said, her voice rising. "I have been running it for over a year without your help. I know what works and what does not." "It is our business now," Benjamin replied, his own frustration showing. "I am your husband and your partner. I have a stake in this too, and I have a right to opinions about how it is run." They stared at each other across the kitchen table, both breathing hard, emotions running high. Then Amanda saw the hurt flash across Benjamin's face and her anger deflated. He was right. They were partners now. She could not keep operating as though she were still alone, making all decisions by herself. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "You are right. This is our business now, not just mine. It is hard for me to let go of control. I have been responsible for everything for so long." Benjamin's expression softened. He came around the table and took her hands. "I know this is an adjustment, and I am not trying to take over or push you aside. Your experience and knowledge are invaluable, but I have skills and perspective too, and we need to use all our resources if we are going to truly thrive rather than just survive." "I am scared," Amanda admitted. "Scared of making the wrong choice and losing everything again." "I know. But fear cannot be the only factor in our decisions." Benjamin pulled her into his arms. "What if we compromise? We save for another 3 months, building up a reserve fund. Then, if we have enough cushion to feel secure, we revisit the expansion idea. That gives us time to prove we can consistently make our loan payments while also setting money aside." Amanda considered this. It was reasonable, balanced, a way to work toward growth without taking reckless risks. "That sounds fair," she agreed. "I can live with that plan." "Good." Benjamin kissed her forehead. "I am sorry I got frustrated. I know you have been carrying heavy burdens alone for a long time. I am still learning how to navigate being your partner without making you feel like I am trying to take over." "And I am learning how to let someone help me," Amanda replied. "We are both going to make mistakes as we figure this out. As long as we keep talking to each other, keep working through things together, we will be fine," Benjamin assured her. They did keep talking, keep working through the various challenges that arose. Some weeks were harder than others. Sometimes Amanda felt suffocated by the expectations of being a wife on top of running the boarding house. Sometimes Benjamin grew restless, his wandering nature making him chafe at the routine of settled life. But they always came back to each other, always found their way through disagreements and difficulties. Winter came to Colorado, bringing snow that blanketed Delta in white and made travel treacherous. Business at the boarding house slowed as fewer people ventured out in the harsh weather, but they had anticipated this and saved accordingly. Benjamin took extra work helping ranchers feed livestock and clear roads, bringing in additional income. On a particularly cold evening in December, they sat together by the fire in the parlor after the other boarders had retired. Benjamin had been unusually quiet all day, and Amanda finally asked what was troubling him. "My mother sent a letter," he said, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. "She wants us to come visit the ranch for Christmas, wants to meet you properly." "That sounds wonderful," Amanda said, surprised by his reluctance. "Why does that bother you?" "Because I know my family," Benjamin sighed. "They will ask questions about how we met, how long we knew each other before marrying. They will worry that I rushed into something foolish." "Did you?" Amanda asked quietly. "Rush into something foolish?" "No," Benjamin said immediately, turning to face her. "Marrying you was the smartest thing I have ever done, but convincing my family of that might be challenging." "Then let us convince them," Amanda said with more confidence than she felt. "Your mother deserves to meet her daughter-in-law, and I would like to meet the people who raised such a good man." They made the journey to Wyoming in mid-December, traveling by train and then hiring a wagon for the final leg to the Stone family ranch. The spread was impressive, with a large ranch house and extensive outbuildings set against a backdrop of snow-covered mountains. Benjamin's mother, Catherine Stone, was a handsome woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that assessed Amanda thoroughly when they first met. His father, Robert, was quieter but equally observant. His two sisters, Margaret and Elizabeth, both arrived with their families for the holiday gathering. The first evening was tense. Over dinner, Margaret asked pointed questions about how Amanda and Benjamin had met and why they had married so quickly. Amanda could feel the judgment behind the words, the assumption that she must have somehow trapped Benjamin. "We met when I took a room at Amanda's boarding house in Delta," Benjamin explained calmly. "And we married quickly because circumstances required it, but also because we recognized what we had found in each other." "Circumstances," Margaret pressed. "What circumstances?" "Family matters," Amanda said firmly. "Financial difficulties that required immediate resolution. Benjamin was kind enough to help me." "So you married him for his money," Margaret concluded, her tone making it clear what she thought of such arrangements. "Margaret," Catherine Stone said sharply. "That is enough." But the damage was done. Amanda felt her cheeks burning with humiliation. She pushed back from the table. "Please excuse me," she said quietly, and left the dining room before anyone could see her tears. She found her way to the small guest room they had been given and sat on the bed, wrapping her arms around herself. She had known this might be difficult, but actually facing Benjamin's family's disapproval hurt more than she had expected. Benjamin found her there a few minutes later. He closed the door behind him and immediately came to sit beside her, pulling her into his arms. "I am so sorry," he said. "Margaret can be judgmental. I should have warned you more thoroughly." "She thinks I am a gold digger," Amanda said miserably. "She thinks I tricked you into marriage." "She does not know you," Benjamin said firmly. "Once she does, she will realize how wrong she is. But if this is too uncomfortable, we can leave. We can go back to Delta and forget about convincing my family." "No," Amanda said, straightening her spine. "I am not running away. If your family is important to you, then winning their respect is important to me. I just need to show them who I really am." Over the next few days, Amanda did exactly that. She helped Catherine in the kitchen, proving herself a capable cook and easy conversationalist. She played with her nieces and nephews, showing patience and warmth. She asked Robert intelligent questions about ranch management, demonstrating that she understood business and hard work. Slowly, the Stone family's attitude began to shift. Catherine admitted privately that she had been worried Benjamin had been taken advantage of, but she could see now that he and Amanda genuinely cared for each other. Robert mentioned that Amanda reminded him of Catherine in her younger days, tough and capable and not afraid of hard work. Even Margaret eventually softened. On Christmas Eve, she found Amanda alone in the kitchen preparing pies for the next day's feast. She stood in the doorway awkwardly before saying, "I owe you an apology. I was unfair when you arrived." Amanda looked up from rolling out dough. "You were protecting your brother. I understand that. Still, I made assumptions that were unkind." Margaret came into the kitchen and picked up a spare rolling pin, beginning to help. "Benjamin has always been the restless one in our family, always chasing something we could not quite understand. Seeing him settled, seeing him happy, that is new. I think it scared me because I did not trust that it was real." "It is real," Amanda assured her. "I love your brother, Margaret. I did not marry him for his money or his help, though both those things were appreciated. I married him because he saw me, truly saw me, when most people just saw my circumstances. He made me believe that I could be more than just a woman struggling to survive. He made me feel valued and cherished." Margaret smiled, some of the tension leaving her face. "He always did have a talent for seeing the best in people. I am glad he found someone who sees the best in him too." Christmas Day at the Stone Ranch was warm and joyful, filled with laughter and good food and the chaos of children excited about their gifts. Amanda felt herself relaxing into the family dynamic, no longer an outsider but gradually becoming a true part of the clan. That night, as she and Benjamin prepared for bed in their guest room, she felt grateful for the difficult journey. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said. "For insisting I meet your family even when it was uncomfortable." "Thank you for giving them a chance," Benjamin replied. "I could see how hard you worked to win them over. That means everything to me, Amanda." "They are good people," Amanda said. "A little overprotective, maybe, but that comes from love." "Just like you are good people," Benjamin murmured, drawing her close. "A little stubborn and independent, maybe, but that comes from strength." They returned to Delta after New Year's with gifts from the Stone family and an open invitation to visit again. Amanda felt lighter than she had before the trip, no longer carrying the weight of wondering whether Benjamin's family would accept her. The bonds had been forged, and while they might not be perfect, they were real and growing stronger. Spring came to Colorado with its usual dramatic flair, the snow melting rapidly and swelling the Gunnison River. The boarding house became busy again, as prospectors and cattle drivers resumed their travels through the area. True to their agreement, Amanda and Benjamin had saved diligently over the winter, and they now had enough of a financial cushion to feel secure about pursuing modest expansion. They hired a carpenter to convert the attic space into 2 additional rooms, small but comfortable spaces that could accommodate short-term guests. The investment paid off quickly, as Delta continued to grow and demand for lodging increased. On a warm evening in May, nearly 8 months after their wedding, Amanda stood on the front porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. She had her hand resting on her stomach, feeling the slight swell there that had become noticeable in recent weeks. Benjamin came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how much has changed in less than a year," Amanda replied. "Last August I was alone and terrified I would lose everything. Now I have a husband I love, a thriving business, and—" She guided his hand to her belly. "And a baby coming." She felt Benjamin's sharp intake of breath, felt him tense with surprise. They had not spoken explicitly about having children yet, though Amanda had suspected for a few weeks now that she was pregnant. "A baby," Benjamin's voice was rough with emotion. "Are you certain?" "Fairly certain. I visited the doctor in town this afternoon. He confirmed it. I am about 3 months along, which means the baby should arrive in late October or early November." Benjamin turned her in his arms so he could see her face. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "We are going to have a baby," he said wonderingly. "Amanda, we are going to be parents." "Are you happy about it?" Amanda asked, suddenly nervous. They had not planned this, had not discussed whether they wanted children or when. What if Benjamin felt trapped, his wandering days truly over now? "Happy." Benjamin laughed, and a tear spilled down his cheek. "I am ecstatic." "Terrified but ecstatic. Amanda, you have given me everything I did not know I wanted. A home, a purpose, love, and now a family. I never imagined I could be this fortunate." "I am scared," Amanda admitted. "Childbirth killed my mother. What if something goes wrong?" "Nothing is going to go wrong," Benjamin said fiercely. "We will get you the best care available. I will be with you every step of the way. And you are strong, Amanda. Stronger than anyone I have ever known." They stood together on the porch as darkness fell, planning and dreaming about the child who would join their family. Benjamin was already talking about building a proper nursery, about teaching their son or daughter to ride and work and appreciate the beauty of the Colorado landscape. The pregnancy progressed well through the summer months, though Amanda found the heat more oppressive than usual. She continued working at the boarding house, though Benjamin took on more of the heavy tasks and insisted she rest more frequently. The other boarders and townspeople congratulated them, and even the gossips who had criticized their quick marriage now seemed pleased that the union was proving fruitful. In October, as the leaves turned gold and the air grew crisp with autumn chill, Amanda's labor began. Benjamin stayed close throughout the long hours, holding her hand and encouraging her even when she cursed him for getting her into this situation. The midwife, an experienced woman named Mrs. Kelly, managed the birth with calm efficiency. Just before dawn on October 28th, their son entered the world with a healthy cry that filled the bedroom. Benjamin wept openly as Mrs. Kelly placed the baby in Amanda's arms, and Amanda herself felt overwhelmed by the surge of love she felt for this tiny, perfect person they had created. "He is beautiful," Benjamin breathed, touching the baby's tiny hand with one finger. "He looks like you." "He has your nose," Amanda said, laughing through her own tears. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names during the pregnancy but never quite settled on one. Now, holding their son, Benjamin said softly, "What about Thomas, after your father, Thomas Stone?" Fresh tears spilled down Amanda's cheeks. "Thomas Foster Stone," she amended. "So he carries both our father's names." "Perfect," Benjamin agreed. Baby Thomas proved to be a relatively easy infant, sleeping well and feeding eagerly. Amanda recovered from the birth more quickly than she had feared, and within a few weeks, she was back to helping run the boarding house, though with Thomas in a basket near wherever she worked. The townspeople came by to visit and bring gifts, exclaiming over the baby and offering advice. Even Mrs. Harrigan, who had once criticized Amanda's unmarried state, cooed over Thomas and pronounced him a fine, healthy boy. "You have done well for yourself, Amanda," Mrs. Harrigan said, her tone friendlier than it had ever been before. "A good husband, a thriving business, and now a beautiful child. Your father would be proud." After she left, Benjamin shook his head with amusement. "I think you have finally won over the respectable ladies of Delta," he observed. "All it took was conforming to their expectations," Amanda replied dryly. "Marriage and motherhood. Are you unhappy about that?" Benjamin asked, concerned, "about how things have turned out?" Amanda looked around her home, at the boarding house that remained hers, at her husband who loved and supported her, at their baby sleeping peacefully in his basket. No, she said honestly. I might have resented the idea that I needed a husband to be respectable, but I could never resent having you in my life. You did not diminish me, Benjamin. You made me stronger, and Thomas. She looked at their sleeping son. He is a gift I never knew I wanted so much. The years that followed brought both challenges and joys. The boarding house continued to prosper under their joint management. They paid off the loan ahead of schedule and were even able to purchase the adjacent lot. Where Benjamin supervised the construction of a small cottage they could rent to families staying longer term. Thomas grew into a bright, energetic boy who loved following his father around and helping with tasks around the property. When he was 3, Amanda discovered she was pregnant again. This time she felt less fear and more excitement, and in the spring of 1882, they welcomed a daughter they named Catherine after Benjamin's mother. Life was not always easy. There were difficult guests to manage, repairs that seemed never-ending, occasional financial setbacks when business slowed. But Amanda and Benjamin faced everything together, their partnership growing stronger with each challenge overcome. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Benjamin surprised Amanda with a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover. "What is this for?" Amanda asked, running her fingers over the smooth leather. "I thought you might want to write down your story," Benjamin explained. "Our story. Everything that has happened, how we met, how we built this life together. Someday Thomas and Catherine might want to know how their parents fell in love." Amanda felt tears prick her eyes. "That is a beautiful idea. You are a remarkable woman, Amanda," Benjamin said softly, taking her hands. "You have accomplished things most people would never have the courage to attempt. You took a failing business and turned it into a success. You fought off those who tried to take advantage of you. You built a reputation in this town as someone honest and capable. And you did it all while being a wonderful wife and mother." "I could not have done any of it without you," Amanda protested. "Benjamin, you saved me. The day you stepped between me and Macready, the day you defended my honor and said no one could speak ill of the woman you cherished, that changed everything for me." "No," Benjamin said firmly. "I did not save you. You saved yourself. You were already surviving, already fighting. I just joined the fight alongside you. And yes, having me here made some things easier, but never doubt that you had the strength all along." Amanda thought back to that day 5 years ago, to Vernon Macready's accusations and the crowd's judgmental stares. She remembered how terrified she had been, how close she had been to losing everything. And she remembered Benjamin stepping forward, claiming to cherish her before they had even really known each other. "Did you really mean it?" she asked. "That day in the street, when you said I was the woman you cherished." "I meant that I could see you were someone worth cherishing," Benjamin clarified. "That you deserved to be defended and protected, and I was not wrong. You were worth cherishing then, and you are worth cherishing now every single day." He pulled her close and kissed her tenderly. After 5 years of marriage, the kiss still sent warmth flooding through Amanda's body. She had not known, that frightening day in August, that the cowboy defending her would become her whole world. But looking back now, she could not imagine her life any other way. Their 10th wedding anniversary arrived in the late summer of 1888, and by then, Thomas was 9 and Catherine was 6. They also had a 3rd child, a son named Benjamin Jr., who everyone called Benji, who had arrived 3 years earlier. The boarding house had become one of the most respected establishments in Delta, known throughout Colorado for its cleanliness, good food, and honest management. Amanda was 32 now, Benjamin 40. They had both changed physically over the decade, Amanda's face showing fine lines around her eyes, Benjamin's dark hair showing threads of gray at his temples. But the connection between them remained as strong as ever, maybe stronger for having weathered so many years together. On the morning of their anniversary, Benjamin woke Amanda before dawn. "Come with me," he whispered. "I have something to show you." Curious, Amanda dressed quietly and followed him downstairs and out to the porch where they had shared so many important conversations. The sky was just beginning to lighten in the east, streaks of pink and orange appearing along the horizon. Benjamin took her hand and led her to the two rocking chairs that still sat in their usual spots. Over the years, they had replaced the chairs several times as weather and use took their toll, but Amanda always made sure to have two chairs there, a symbol of their partnership. 10 years ago today, we stood in that little church and promised to love and support each other, Benjamin said softly. At the time, I thought I understood what those promises meant, but I did not really. A decade of living those promises has taught me that love is not just feeling affection for someone. It is choosing them every single day. It is working through frustrations and disappointments. It is celebrating victories together and comforting each other through losses. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside were two simple gold bands, wedding rings they had not had time or money for during their rushed original ceremony. "I want us to renew our vows," Benjamin said. "Not because the first ones were not valid, but because I want to speak them again with the knowledge of everything they truly mean. I want to promise again to love you, Amanda, with full understanding of what that love entails." Amanda felt tears streaming down her face as she looked at the rings, then up at Benjamin's beloved face. "Yes," she whispered. "Oh, yes." They arranged a small ceremony for later that week, inviting only close friends and family. Benjamin's parents made the journey from Wyoming, and Sheriff Patterson agreed to stand as witness again, just as he had 10 years earlier. Reverend Matthews, older now but still serving Delta's church, smiled as he performed the ceremony. This time, Amanda wore a proper wedding dress, a beautiful gown of ivory silk that Benjamin had ordered from Denver. Her children stood beside her, Thomas looking serious and proud in his first suit, Catherine in a pretty pink dress, and little Benji wiggling with excitement at being part of something important. When Reverend Matthews asked them to speak their vows, Amanda looked into Benjamin's eyes and said, "10 years ago, I was a frightened woman who thought she had to face the world alone. You showed me that strength does not mean refusing help, that courage includes letting yourself be vulnerable with someone who has proven trustworthy. You defended my honor when others sought to destroy it. You stood beside me through financial troubles and personal struggles. You gave me children and a partnership and love beyond anything I imagined possible. Today I promise again to love you, Benjamin Stone, not just for what you have done for me, but for who you are. My husband, my partner, the father of my children, and my dearest friend." Benjamin's voice was thick with emotion as he replied, "10 years ago, I was a drifter who had never found a place that felt like home. You gave me that home, Amanda, not just this house or this town, but a place in your heart. You have challenged me to be better, supported me when I struggled, and loved me through my imperfections. You are the strongest person I know, and also the kindest. Today I promise again to cherish you, to defend you, to work beside you in building our life together. I promise to be the partner you deserve, the father our children need, and the man who will love you until my last breath." They exchanged the gold rings, sliding them onto each other's fingers as symbols of their renewed commitment. When Reverend Matthews pronounced them husband and wife again, Benjamin kissed Amanda deeply while their children giggled, and the small gathering of witnesses applauded. The celebration afterward was joyful, with food and music and laughter filling the boarding house. Amanda stood in the kitchen at one point, watching through the doorway as Benjamin danced with Catherine while Thomas tried to convince his grandfather to tell stories about Benjamin as a boy. Benji was being passed around among the guests, soaking up attention from everyone. Mrs. Kelly, the midwife who had delivered all three of Amanda's children, came to stand beside her. "You have built a beautiful life," she observed. "Not many women manage what you have, Amanda. Running a successful business while raising a family and maintaining a strong marriage." "I have been fortunate," Amanda replied. "I found a man who treated me as an equal partner rather than trying to control me." "That is not fortune," Mrs. Kelly said shrewdly. "That is good judgment in choosing a husband and then hard work from both of you to make the partnership function. Give yourself credit for what you have achieved." As the years continued to pass, Amanda and Benjamin's children grew and the boarding house evolved with the changing times. Delta grew from a small frontier town into a more established community, with better roads, more businesses, and even talk of expanding the railroad connections. Thomas showed an aptitude for business and began helping his parents manage the boarding house's accounts. Catherine had her mother's warm hospitality and her father's easy way with people, making guests feel immediately welcome. Benji, still young, seemed most interested in the horses that travelers brought to their stable, spending hours brushing them down and talking to them. When Thomas turned 18 in 1891, he asked if he could attend university in Denver to study business formally. Amanda and Benjamin discussed it carefully. The boarding house was doing well enough financially that they could afford his tuition, but it would mean their oldest child leaving home for the first time. "Let him go," Benjamin advised when Amanda expressed concerns. "He needs to test himself, find his own path, just like I did at his age." "But you came back," Amanda pointed out. "You found your way home eventually. And Thomas will too if this is where he is meant to be, but he needs the chance to discover that for himself." So Thomas went to Denver, returning home for holidays and summers, his eyes bright with new knowledge and experiences. Catherine, now 15, took on more responsibilities at the boarding house, proving herself capable beyond her years. One evening in the summer of 1893, as Amanda and Benjamin sat on their porch watching the sunset, she said quietly, "Do you ever miss it? The wandering life you had before you came to Delta?" Benjamin was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the freedom of it," he admitted. "The excitement of not knowing what was over the next hill, but I do not miss the loneliness. I do not miss having no one to share experiences with, no one who truly knew me. This life we have built together, Amanda, it has challenges and responsibilities that drifting never did. But it also has rewards beyond anything I found on the trail." "Like what?" Amanda asked, even though she thought she knew. "Like watching our children grow into remarkable people. Like building something lasting with my own hands. Like falling asleep beside you every night and waking up to see your face every morning. Like knowing I have a place in the world, a role that matters, people who need me." He turned to look at her directly. "Like being loved by an extraordinary woman who has made me a better man than I ever would have been on my own." "You were already a good man," Amanda said softly. "That is why you stepped in to defend me all those years ago when you had no obligation to do so." "And you were already a strong woman," Benjamin replied. "That is why you survived everything that was thrown at you and came out stronger. We have been good for each other, Amanda. We have brought out the best in one another." In 1895, Thomas graduated from university and returned to Delta with a business degree and a fiancée named Sarah, a bright young woman from Denver. They married that fall, and Thomas took over more of the day-to-day management of the boarding house, implementing new ideas and modernizations. Catherine met a young doctor who came to practice in Delta, and they courted for a year before marrying in 1897. Benji, now 12, remained at home and showed increasing interest in actually running a ranch rather than just a boarding house with stables. "He has your restless blood," Amanda told Benjamin. "He wants wider horizons." "Then maybe we should give him some," Benjamin replied thoughtfully. "I have been thinking about buying some land outside town, nothing huge but enough for cattle and horses. Thomas can manage the boarding house, and we can start building something new with Benji. A chance for him to learn ranching before he is old enough to strike out on his own." They purchased a modest ranch property about 5 miles from Delta, and Benjamin spent increasing amounts of time there with Benji, teaching him everything Robert Stone had once tried to teach Benjamin about raising livestock and managing land. Amanda split her time between the boarding house and the ranch, finding she enjoyed the change of pace. The new century arrived with celebration and optimism. Amanda was 44 now, Benjamin 54. They had been married for 22 years, had raised 3 successful children, and had built not just one business but 2. The boarding house continued to thrive under Thomas's management, while the small ranch was beginning to show promise. On a cool evening in October 1900, Amanda and Benjamin rode out to their favorite spot on the ranch property, a small rise that overlooked the valley where Delta sat nestled among the mesas. They had brought a blanket and a basket of food, planning to watch the stars come out together. As they sat side by side, sharing bread and cheese and watching the sky darken, Benjamin said, "Do you remember what you told me once? That your father said circumstances might constrain us, but they do not have to define us." "I remember," Amanda replied. "I have been thinking about that a lot lately. 22 years ago, circumstances brought me to your boarding house. More circumstances almost took it away from you. We let those circumstances push us together faster than we might have moved otherwise, but they did not define us. We defined ourselves. We chose each other, not just that day we married, but every day since. And that makes all the difference." Amanda leaned against his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady presence that had been her anchor for more than 2 decades. "I chose well," she said softly. "That day you defended me when you said no one could speak ill of the woman you cherished. You changed my life, Benjamin. You gave me hope when I had none. You stood beside me when I had no right to expect it, and you have loved me, truly loved me, every day since." "You made it easy to love you," Benjamin replied, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "You are everything I never knew I needed, Amanda. My home, my heart, my reason for finally putting down roots." They sat together in comfortable silence as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, then more and more until the heavens were blazing with light. After all these years, Amanda sometimes forgot how dramatic the night sky could be out here on the high plains, away from the lights of town. "What do you think our grandchildren will remember about us?" Amanda mused. Thomas and Sarah had given them 2 grandchildren so far, with another on the way. Catherine and her doctor husband had a baby girl. "I hope they remember that we loved each other," Benjamin said simply. "That we built something good together, something that lasted. That we faced challenges with courage and celebrated victories with joy. That we treated people fairly and stood up for what was right. I hope they remember that their grandmother was not just a wife and mother," Amanda added. "That she ran a business and managed finances and proved that women could do more than society said they should." "They will remember that," Benjamin assured her, "because you are teaching Catherine and your granddaughters that lesson every day." You are showing them what strength and capability look like, just like you showed me all those years ago when you refused to let Macready's lies destroy you." Amanda turned in his arms so she could see his face in the starlight. "Tell me something. That day in the street when you said I was the woman you cherished, did you have any idea what you were starting? Did you have any clue where that moment would lead?" Benjamin smiled, his teeth flashing white in the darkness. "Not a clue," he admitted. "I just knew I could not stand by and let that man hurt you. Everything else, all of this, it grew from that moment, but I never could have predicted it. Sometimes I think we were just two lonely people who got lucky enough to find each other at exactly the right time." "Not luck," Amanda disagreed. "Choice. You chose to defend me. I chose to trust you. We chose to face our problems together. We chose to build a life and a family. Every good thing we have came from the choices we made." "Then I am glad we chose each other," Benjamin said and kissed her softly. The years continued their steady march forward. Benji grew into a capable young man who eventually started his own ranch with his father's help and guidance. Thomas expanded the boarding house into a full hotel, modernizing it with indoor plumbing and electric lights as those innovations came to Delta. Catherine's husband became a respected physician in the community, and she worked alongside him, helping patients in ways that went beyond medical treatment. Amanda and Benjamin grew older together, their hair turning silver, their movements becoming slower but no less purposeful. They split their time between the ranch and visits to town to see their children and growing number of grandchildren. The boarding house that Amanda had once feared losing became a permanent fixture of Delta, known throughout Colorado as a quality establishment with a remarkable history. In the summer of 1915, Delta organized a celebration for its 50th anniversary as an incorporated town. As one of the oldest businesses still operating, the boarding house, now the Delta Hotel under Thomas's management, was featured prominently in the festivities. Amanda and Benjamin, now 69 and 79 respectively, were asked to speak about the old days. Standing on a platform in front of what seemed like the entire town, Amanda felt nervous in a way she had not in years. But Benjamin squeezed her hand, and she drew strength from his presence as she always had. "My father built the first version of our hotel," she told the gathered crowd. "He believed that Delta would grow into something special, and he wanted to be part of that growth. When he died and left the business to me, many people thought I should sell and leave. They did not believe a young woman could manage such an enterprise. I believed otherwise, but I will admit there were moments I doubted myself." She looked at Benjamin, standing beside her with pride shining in his eyes. "Then one day, a cowboy came to town and taught me an important lesson. He taught me that defending what you love, standing up for what is right, those things matter more than what society says is proper or possible. He defended my honor when others sought to destroy my reputation. He said that no one would speak ill of the woman he cherished, and then he proved it, not just that day but every day for the past 37 years. There were murmurs and whispers in the crowd. Most people in Delta knew the story of how Amanda and Benjamin had met, but hearing it directly from her brought it to life in a new way. "I tell you this story not to boast about my own struggles," Amanda continued, "but to illustrate what has always made Delta special. This is a place where people stand up for each other, where neighbors defend neighbors, where what matters is character and capability, not just circumstances of birth. My husband saw that in me all those years ago, and together we have tried to embody those values in how we run our business and raise our family and contribute to this community." Benjamin stepped forward then, his voice still strong despite his advanced years. "Amanda gives me too much credit," he said. The truth is, she saved herself. She had the strength and determination to hold onto her father's legacy and build on it. All I did was stand beside her and try to be worthy of her faith in me. If there is one thing I hope the young people of Delta take from our story, it is this: find someone who makes you stronger. Find someone whose dreams align with yours and whose values match your own. And then choose them every single day through good times and hard times. That is the secret to a good life. The crowd applauded warmly, and Amanda felt tears on her cheeks. She had not expected to become emotional, but speaking about their journey, acknowledging everything they had overcome and built together, brought back a flood of memories and feelings. That evening, after the festivities ended, they returned to their ranch where they now lived full-time, having turned the hotel completely over to Thomas several years earlier. They sat on the porch of the modest ranch house Benji had helped them build, looking out at the familiar landscape bathed in the golden light of sunset. "You have any regrets?" Amanda asked quietly. "Looking back on your life, is there anything you wish had been different?" Benjamin considered the question seriously, as he always did when she asked him something important. "I regret the years I spent wandering before I found Delta," he said finally. "Not because those years did not teach me things or give me experiences, but because they were years I could have spent with you. If I had met you at 20 instead of 30, we would have had a decade more together." "But would we have been ready for each other at 20? Amanda asked. "Would I have had the strength and independence I gained from managing my father's business? Would you have had the maturity and wisdom you gained from your travels? Maybe we met at exactly the right time, when we were who we needed to be to make this work." "You always did see things more clearly than I did," Benjamin said with a smile. He took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture so familiar it was like breathing. "No regrets then, just gratitude for every moment we have had." They lived 7 more years in comfortable retirement, seeing their grandchildren grow, and even welcoming great-grandchildren into the world. Amanda remained sharp and engaged until the very end, reading newspapers and books, staying current with events, and offering advice to her children and grandchildren when they asked for it. Benjamin's health began declining in the winter of 1922, his strong body finally giving in to the accumulated years and hard work. He remained at home, refusing hospitalization, with Amanda nursing him as devotedly as she had managed everything else in their life together. On a cold February morning, with Amanda holding his hand and their children gathered around his bed, Benjamin drew his last breath. He was 86 years old and had lived a full, rich life. His last words, spoken in a whisper to Amanda, were, "Thank you for letting me cherish you." Amanda wept then, holding his hand long after the warmth had faded from it, mourning the loss of the man who had been her partner for 44 years. But even in her grief, she felt grateful. Grateful for the unexpected gift he had been, for the life they had built, for the love that had sustained them through every challenge. She lived 2 more years after Benjamin's death, still sharp and capable despite her advancing age. She spent her time at the ranch Benji ran, helping with grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling stories about the old days, and making sure the younger generations understood their family history. On a warm August morning in 1924, Amanda passed peacefully in her sleep at the age of 78. Her children found her in her bed with a small smile on her face, and on her nightstand was the journal Benjamin had given her on their 5th anniversary, now filled with the story of their life together. The funeral was large, with people coming from all over Colorado to pay their respects to a woman who had been a fixture of Delta for more than 60 years. The hotel that had once been her boarding house flew its flags at half-mast, and the mayor spoke of Amanda as a pioneer and an example of courage and determination. But perhaps the most fitting tribute came from Catherine, now a middle-aged woman with grown children of her own. Standing beside her parents' graves in the church cemetery, she told the assembled mourners, "My mother taught us that strength comes in many forms, that love is both powerful and practical. That partnership means standing beside someone, defending them when they need it, supporting them through struggles, and celebrating with them in victories. My father embodied those same lessons, defending my mother's honor when they barely knew each other, and then spending the rest of his life proving that his defense was not empty words but genuine commitment." She paused, looking at the two simple headstones that would mark her parents' final resting place. "They built something beautiful together, my parents. Not just businesses and property, but a family and a legacy of integrity and love. And they did it by choosing each other, every single day, for more than 4 decades. That is what I will remember. That is what I hope we all remember, not just their accomplishments, but the love that made those accomplishments possible." Years later, when historians compiled the history of Delta, Colorado, the story of Amanda Foster and Benjamin Stone featured prominently. The hotel that had been her boarding house still stood, now run by her great-great-grandchildren, with a plaque in the lobby telling the story of its founding and the remarkable woman who had fought to keep it. But more than the business legacy, what endured was the story itself. The tale of a cowboy who defended a woman's honor against false accusations, who said that no one could speak ill of the woman he cherished even before he truly knew her. The story of a woman who refused to be defeated by circumstance, who built a life and a family against the odds. The story of two people who found each other at exactly the right moment and chose to face whatever came next as partners. It became the kind of story grandparents told grandchildren, a romance and an adventure, and a testament to the power of standing up for what is right. It reminded people that sometimes the most important moments in life come when we choose to act with courage and conviction, even when the outcome is uncertain. And somewhere, in the records and memories and stories passed down through generations, the echo of Benjamin's words remained. "No one speaks ill of the woman I cherish." Words that had changed 2 lives and created a legacy that would last far beyond either of them could have imagined. Words that proved that sometimes defending someone's honor is not just about justice, but about recognizing worth and offering love when it is needed most. The story of Amanda and Benjamin became part of Delta's identity, a reminder of the town's frontier heritage and the remarkable people who had built it. Their great-great-grandchildren still lived in the area, still ran the hotel, still told the story to anyone who asked about the old photograph that hung in the lobby showing a young woman and a cowboy standing together, their hands linked, their faces serious but their eyes full of hope. That hope had been justified. The love they found had lasted. The life they built had endured. And the choice they made to stand together against whatever challenges came had proven to be the right one after all. In the end, that was what mattered. Not that their path had been easy or conventional, but that it had been theirs. Built together, defended together, cherished together. A true partnership that had stood the test of time and left a legacy of love and courage for all who came after.